Hello everyone, in this video we're going to look at Vygotsky's theory of social development, also called as the socio-cultural theory. Now just like Piaget, the work of Vygotsky has become the foundation of much research and theories in cognitive development over the past several decades, which is one of the reasons why we're looking at it in this video. Now what was Vygotsky's rationale in developing this theory? He believed that social interaction is a major factor that leads to cognitive development in children. I quote, "Every function in the child's cultural development appears twice, first on the social level and later on the individual level, first between people and then inside the child." This basically means there is a link between communication and internal thought process. This will be explained further through the course of this video. We firstly look at an important concept called elementary mental functions, or EMFs. He believed that infants are born with some mental abilities, or EMFs, like attention, sensation, perception and memory, which are later developed into higher mental functions. Now if we look at Vygotsky's theory in a nutshell, it basically is a conversion of EMFs into higher mental functions through social interaction, and these higher mental functions include independent thinking and independent learning. Now let's look at some important principles of Vygotsky's work. What are the foundations upon which Vygotsky laid the theory? The first principle is a concept called a more knowledgeable other, or MKO. The second is the zone of proximal development, or ZPD, and the third is language. So what is the first fundamental principle, which is the more knowledgeable other? So a more knowledgeable other is somebody with a higher mental ability level than the learner. So an MKO can impart knowledge and lead to cognitive development in a child or an infant. It's also important to remember that this doesn't have to be an older adult. It can also be another child, a slightly older child. Now, for instance, if the knowledge imparted it relates to video games, then an older child can be a better MKO than an adult. Now, an MKO can provide behavioral or verbal instructions to the child, which will lead to collaborative dialogue, and this can lead to cognitive development. So you get the concept, I'm sure, about a more knowledgeable other, or an MKO, imparting information to a child, and this leading to cognitive development. In a similar way, there is a concept called a zone of proximal development, ZPD. Before we look at that, we'll look at a very simple example which is very commonly used with this theory. Now, the example entails a child attempting to solve a jigsaw puzzle. The child is attempting to solve a jigsaw puzzle under the supervision of an adult. The child struggles at first to understand where to start and how to proceed. Then the adult provides instructions like start off with looking for corner pieces first, and then start assembling the puzzle through the corner pieces and make your way to the center. Once these instructions are provided, the child finds it easy to solve the jigsaw puzzle under the adult supervision, and then gradually without the adult being present. So it's a process of learning how to solve a jigsaw puzzle, which now leads to what we call the zone of proximal development. Now, there is a zone of can-dos for a child and a zone of can't-dos for a child, because obviously a child will only gradually learn how to do a lot of things over the course of his or her life. Now, between the zone of can-dos and can't-dos is the zone of proximal development, which is the zone reached because of an input provided by an MKO, or it can be input provided through technological tools as well. Now, because of the input of an MKO, now for instance, in this example that we just used, an adult explained to the child to start off with the corner pieces and make his or her way to the center, has enhanced the can-do zone of the child and made it approach towards the can't-do zone in this particular example. So, with the use of an MKO's knowledge, a child can reach that area or zone of proximal development. That is basically what this concept means. Now, the third important principle of Vygotsky's theory is the use of language, because Vygotsky viewed language to be one of man's greatest tools of cognitive development and not just a means of communication. He believed that language until the age of 2 is just a means of external communication, and then from the age of 3 it becomes a part of private speech, or basically children speak to themselves and try to learn from that process, try to explain things to themselves, and that gradually becomes silent internal speech, which then becomes the child's internal thought process. So he basically viewed language as a tool, as one of the greatest tools of development, of cognitive development in a child. So the three important tools or principles are the MKO, a zone of proximal development, ZPD, and language. Okay, I hope that was helpful in terms of understanding what Vygotsky's theory of sociological development